Imagine, for a second, dedicating your entire life to a single physical pursuit. Like you bleed for it, you suffer for it, and against literally all odds, you reach the absolute pinnacle.
Right. You actually win an Olympic medal.
Exactly. You win a medal. Now imagine that your entire permanent legacy, like the definitive record of your existence on the internet, takes exactly 10 seconds to read.
Oh, yeah. It's a sobering thought.
It really is. Because today, we are not looking at information overload. We're looking at extreme digital scarcity.
We're examining what are called a Wikipedia stub.
Right.
And, for anyone unfamiliar with the actual mechanics of Wikipedia, a stub isn't just like a short article. It's a page that is officially flagged by the platform's architecture as being incomplete.
It literally says so on the page.
Yeah. It carries a literal banner at the bottom, signaling to the world that it is just a skeletal framework. It's essentially begging the public to fill in the missing pieces.
Okay, let's unpack this. Our subject today is Vladimir Portnoy, and our entire source material for this whole deep dive is this one single, incredibly brief webpage.
That's it?
That's it. We have a few sparse lines of text, a handful of dates, a tiny info box on the right side of the screen, and some footnotes.
It's remarkably sparse.
So our mission today is kind of an exercise in historical excavation. We want to show you, the listener, how to read between the lines of a digital fragment, to see just how much humanity can be pulled from a few bullet points.
And the contrast here is really what makes this exercise so compelling to me. On one hand, you have the visceral, sweaty reality of elite athletics.
Oh, totally.
I mean, we were talking about an Olympic gymnast, but then on the other hand, you have the sterile, highly structured format of a database entry.
Just raw data.
Exactly. A life of movement and geopolitical turbulence distilled down to maybe, 57 words of HTML text and code?
Yeah, it's wild. So we really have to start with the geography and the timeline. Before we even look at his time on the Olympic podium, we have to look at the opening sentence.
Right, setting the scene.
The page tells us he was born on June 9th, 1931, and his birthplace is listed as Odessa, Ukrainian SSR, Soviet Union.
Well, if we connect this to the bigger picture, those overlapping geographic labels are doing a lot of heavy lifting.
Oh, absolutely.
But the way Wikipedia handles this structurally is even more revealing. If you scroll down to the very bottom of any Wikipedia page, there is this hidden architecture called the categories section.
Oh, I love the categories section.
All right. And these aren't just descriptive words. They are digital filing cabinets. They're indexing tools created by editors to build these invisible webs of connection across the internet.
I was looking at those exact tags on his page. It categorizes him as from Odessa, spelled with one Z in the category tag, actually then as a 20th century Ukrainian sportsman.
Right.
Then as part of the Ukrainian SSR, then a Soviet gymnast. And intersecting with all of that geography, he is categorized as Jewish, as part of Soviet Jews, and as one of the Jewish Ukrainian sports people.
Quite a list.
It's like a set of geopolitical Russian nesting dolls.
That's a great way to put it. And that categorization mechanism, it forces a really complex human life into very rigid boxes.
Yeah, databases don't do nuance.
No, they don't. To be born in Odessa in 1931 means being born into a very specific cultural and historical crucible. But the page doesn't offer a single sentence about his childhood, his family, or his personal experiences.
Not a word.
It just assigns him these labels. But those labels, Ukrainian, Soviet, Jewish, they represent massive, often very turbulent historical currents of the 20th century. He is preserved in the database simply as an intersection of those specific identities.
Which is fascinating. But I want to pause on the math of his life, too.
Oh, the timeline.
Yeah, because looking at the dates here reveals a story that the text itself doesn't even bother to spell out. Let's just do the math out loud.
Okay.
Born on June 9th, 1931, the page tells us his athletic peak, the moment he stepped onto the Olympic podium, was the 1960 Summer Olympics in Rome.
Right, the Rome Olympics.
So 1931 to 1960. That means he was 29 years old at the time of the competition.
And in the context of international gymnastics, 29 is a highly unusual age for peak performance.
Unusual is an understatement. I mean, I watch modern gymnastics, and 29 is practically a senior citizen in that sport.
Very true.
You hear commentators today talking about, 22-year-olds as seasoned veterans whose bodies are just breaking down. The sheer physical toll that elite gymnastics takes on the human joints, the spine, the explosive power required, it's immense.
It's a brutal sport.
So the fact that Portnoy was out there at age 29 performing at an elite international level for the Soviet Union, that tells a hidden story of just unbelievable physical endurance.
He really does. It implies a late-stage athletic peak or perhaps a career delayed or extended by circumstances that the stub just doesn't provide.
Right, the missing pieces.
And speaking of his physical reality, I find it so fascinating to look at the info box on the right side of the page.
Oh, the stats box.
Yeah. Out of an entire lifetime of physical movement, the digital record preserves exactly one specific physical measurement: his height. He is permanently recorded at 1.68 meters, or 5 feet 6 inches.
Wait, let me stop you there because that detail really highlights how bizarre the digital record is.
How so?
Well, 5'6" is the only no-Kawaiiwai physical trait we have. We know his exact height to the centimeter, but we have absolutely no idea what his voice sounded like.
Oh, I see what you mean.
We don't know his resting heart rate. We don't know his demeanor. Like, we don't even know if he smiled when he competed.
That's a great point.
It's like walking into a massive library where 99% of the books are totally blank. We have the title on the spine, the 5'6" height, the birth date, but the pages inside are just entirely empty.
That is exactly the nature of a database. It prioritizes the quantifiable over the qualitative.
Right. If you can't measure it, it doesn't exist.
Exactly. And that quantifiable data brings us directly to the absolute centerpiece of his public life, the reason this page exists at all: the 1960 Rome Olympics.
This is his output. This is where he writes his name into the global record.
The big moment.
At the 1960 Summer Olympics, representing the USSR, he wins 2 medals. First, he wins a silver medal in team combined gymnastics.
A huge achievement on its own.
Absolutely. And then he wins an individual bronze medal in an event called the long horse. Let's actually look at that terminology. The long horse.
It immediately dates the achievement, doesn't it?
It really does. It's a historic term for what we now simply call the vault.
Right.
But the phrase long horse sounds so, I don't know, mid-century, so classic. It reminds you that the apparatus itself, the standards of judging, and the very language we use to describe human movement are constantly evolving.
Oh, completely.
He wasn't doing a modern vault with like a springboard and a rounded table. He was launching himself over the long horse.
And we need to look closely at how the text frames that individual achievement, too.
Okay.
Because what's fascinating here is the specific phrasing used to describe his bronze medal.
In the stub itself.
Yes. The text explicitly says, and I quote, "He won a bronze medal in the long horse at the same Olympics, behind Takashi Ono gold and Boris Shoklin's silver."
Yeah. I read that sentence a few times. He reaches the absolute apex of global competition. He does what literally billions of humans will never, ever be able to do.
Right.
But in the permanent historical record, in his own incredibly brief biography, he is defined as being behind 2 other people.
Takashi Ono and Boris Shoklin.
Yeah.
Their names are permanently etched into Portnoy's own story. It's a permanent framing of his legacy relative to his peers.
Wow.
It paints a picture of fierce, elite international competition, sure, but it also means he is forever frozen in time on that third step of the podium, just looking up at Ono and Shoklin.
It's a really harsh reality of how history records second and third place, isn't it?
Very much so.
So we have this man carrying the weight of all these turbulent historical labels, competing at age 29, frozen on the third step of the podium. We know exactly what he did in Rome.
We have the hard facts.
Yeah. Right. But that brings up a massive question for this whole exercise. How is his memory actually being kept alive today? Like, who is maintaining this stub?
Well, to find that answer, we actually have to leave the main text of the article entirely. We have to look at the foundation the page is built on.
And here's where it gets really interesting. If you scroll down this tiny page, past the 2 sentences of biography, past the little metal box, you hit the references section.
The footnotes.
Yeah, there are 9 footnotes, 9 tiny numbers that justify the entire existence of this webpage. But before we dive into those sources, we have to look at the other definitive date the page gives us, the end of the timeline.
The info box records his death as February 19th, 1984.
Right, and right next to that date is this quiet, frankly devastating little parenthetical, aged 52.
Just 52 years old.
He was only 52. Think about the math of that life again. He was 29 at the Olympics in 1960. He lives for another 24 years after Rome and then dies at 52.
And those 24 years.
The Wikipedia page contains 0 words about those 24 years. Nothing. There is a deeply somber symmetry here, I think. The brevity of Portnoy's article tragically mirrors the brevity of his life.
A shortened life represented by a shortened article.
Yeah.
And it is in that context a life cut short, with massive gaps in the narrative, that those 9 footnotes become our most valuable tool.
How so?
Because this is where we can do some basic historiographical analysis.
Okay, let's break that term down for the listener. Historiography isn't just the study of history, right? It's the study of how history is written.
Correct. It asks questions like, who is keeping the records? What sources are they using? Why are they choosing to write this down in the first place?
That's right, the motives behind the history.
Exactly. When we apply historiographical analysis to Vladimir Portnoy's stub, we look at who the active custodians of his legacy actually are. And the picture that emerges from these footnotes is honestly entirely unexpected.
See, I went into this expecting the footnotes to be dominated by, like, official Soviet state archives.
Mm.
After all, he won medals for the USSR. Or maybe vast, sterile databases managed by the International Olympic Committee.
And while there's a brief mention of a U.S. Olympic Committee report from 1960, the vast majority of the specific biographical citations come from a very different place.
Yeah, let's look at the actual titles of the books cited at the bottom of the page. We have a book published in 2008 called Day by Day in Jewish Sports History by Bob Wexler.
Then we have the 2007 edition of the Encyclopedia Judaica.
I'm looking at the next one, too. It's Peter S. Horvitz's 2007 book, The Big Book of Jewish Sports Heroes, an illustrated compendium of sports history, and the 150 Greatest Jewish Sports Stars.
And finally, a book from 1979 by Martin Harry Greenberg titled The Jewish Lists, Physicists and Generals, Actors and Writers, and hundreds of other lists of accomplished Jews.
Notice the publication years on those books, 2007, 2008.
Right.
These books were published decades after his death in 1984 and long after the Soviet Union collapsed.
Which tells us so much.
His memory isn't being sustained by mainstream Olympic historians. The country he represented doesn't even exist to remember him. Instead, his legacy is being meticulously cataloged and preserved by Jewish sports historians.
And this completely changes our understanding of the page. You see, history is not an objective, monolithic object that simply exists on a server somewhere.
Right, it doesn't just spontaneously generate.
Exactly. History requires an active process. It requires custodians. In Portnoy's case, it is a specific community actively choosing to remember their heroes.
That's beautiful, actually.
It is. These historians build encyclopedias and compendiums just to ensure that individuals from their community survive the erosion of time. They are the ones who made sure his name, his height, and his medals were cited properly so that a Wikipedia editor could eventually build this digital fragment.
It's like a refusal to let one of their own fade into the static.
Precisely.
But despite all those citations, despite the big book of Jewish sports heroes and the Encyclopedia Judaica, the platform itself is unsatisfied. The architecture of Wikipedia wants more data?
Yes, let's look at the literal language of the page status, that banner that makes this a stub in the first place.
Oh, the warning box.
It doesn't just quietly sit there, it explicitly flags the reader. At the bottom, it reads, "This biographical article related to Ukrainian artistic gymnastics is a stub. You can help Wikipedia by adding missing information."
Right.
And immediately below that, it repeats the plea in a slightly different category. This article about a Soviet Olympic medalist is a stub. You can help Wikipedia by adding missing information.
You can help by adding missing information. It's an open call to action.
It really is.
It's a structural admission by the database itself that this man's life was exponentially larger than the 57 words dedicated to his biography.
Oh, without a doubt.
I mean, we don't know what his training regimen looked like in Odessa. We don't know the actual texture of the long horse apparatus he jumped over. We don't know what it felt like to stand on that podium in Rome looking up at Ono and Shaaklin.
We know the what, but not the how or the why.
And we certainly don't know anything about the 24 years he lived between his Olympic triumph and his sudden death at age 52.
The missing information is vast. The stub gives us the fixed coordinates, the birth, the medals, the death, but the spaces between those coordinates are entirely empty.
So what does this all mean? Why did we spend this time dissecting the metadata, the footnotes, and the literal math of a stub article about a gymnast from 1960? Like, why should you, the listener, care about Vladimir Portnoy?
Well, because analyzing a stub is a profound exercise in understanding the true nature of legacy.
It strips away a very common illusion, I think. We tend to think that achieving greatness guarantees a sprawling, detailed legacy.
We do. We assume greatness equals immortality.
But this proves that even people who achieve the literal pinnacle of human capability, someone who wins an Olympic medal, someone who is officially recognized as one of the best in the entire world at what they do eventually, over enough time, they get distilled down.
It's inevitable.
You become a few bullet points, a birth date, a death date, a height measurement, a couple of geopolitical metadata tags, and a spot on a podium behind two other guys.
But simultaneously, it shows the power of the margins. Those footnotes prove that as long as someone, somewhere, cares enough to write your name down in a book or enter it into a database, you aren't truly erased.
Yeah.
You become a stub. You become a digital placeholder for a much larger, richer human story, just waiting for someone to find it.
And that brings us to the final thought we want to leave you with today. We've spent this deep dive excavating the missing information of an Olympic athlete. Watching how his complex life was reduced to bare facts, sustained only by a specific community of historians.
And remember, the platform literally tells us you can help by adding missing information. It's an open invitation to the world to remember.
So take that call to action and turn it inward for a second. If an Olympic medalist, a man who conquered the long horse on the world stage in Rome, ends up as just a stub with missing information, what does the stub of your own family history look like?
It's a great question.
Who are the active custodians of your legacy? Who is keeping the records of the people in your life, the intricate stories of your parents or your grandparents?
Because history doesn't just happen.
Exactly. It doesn't just happen. It is actively kept. And if you aren't writing those stories down, if you aren't cataloging the details of the people you love, they might not even get a stub. What missing information is out there in your own life, waiting for you to fill it in before it is completely lost to time?